My favorite way to fall asleep at night while listening to ASMR is with my sleep phones. You can check the link down in the description box to purchase your own pair with my affiliate code that helps support my channel. Check out the video at the end of this video for more information about how these amazing sleep phones work. Thank you so much and enjoy the video. Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be continuing our read through of this book, History of the World, Map by Map. And if you're new to this series or my channel, welcome. This series is unscripted. I have not read these maps beforehand. The last video got a little unhinged. I'm sorry, or you're welcome. I know some of you enjoy it. Pretty sure some of you don't, but thankfully you guys don't vocalize that. I appreciate that. But I'm going to try to reel it in this time, but we'll see how that goes because tonight's video is about World War II. So we'll see how that goes. There are a lot of maps to get through, so let's just dive right in. Starting with, oh my gosh, we're so far into this book, it's so heavy. The Axis Powers Advance. Here's our map. All right. Box number 1 says the invasion of Poland in September 1939. Germany invaded Poland from the west on September 1st, 1939, and besieged Warsaw with heavy aerial and artillery bombardment. The Soviet Union then attacked from the east. With the fall of Warsaw on September 27th, Polish independence was over, and the country was divided between the two aggressors. At least 70,000 Poles lost their lives in 30 days. And this shows the bombing of Warsaw, which is, of course, right here. Next is the Soviet conquests between November 1939 and June 1940. After Poland, Stalin invaded Finland. The Finns held out for some time, but by March 1940 were made to give up strategically important territories, leaving them bitter for revenge. In June 1940, Stalin annexed Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, countries that Hitler also wanted for Germany. So Soviet conquests are shown by this lime green line here. So we can see how much Stalin, I suppose, annexed there from Finland. Got the Baltic states there, all through Poland, down into Ukraine. All of that now part of the Soviet Union. Number 3 says invasion of Scandinavia and the Low Countries between April and June 1940. In the spring of 1940, an emboldened Germany successfully invaded Denmark and attacked Norway with its navy and pioneering paratroop operations. In May, more than 2 million German troops on land and in the air invaded Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. My cat's trying to invade this office space. He's scratching at the door. Sorry, kitty cat. Number 4 is the fall of France between May and June 1940. France had fortified part of its border with the Maginot Line and sent its best armies into Belgium and the Netherlands to defend against a German attack. German armored forces cut them off by an advance through the Ardennes forest behind them and defeated the Allies at Sedan. It was a disaster. France, under a new leader, Marshal Philippe Pétain, sued for an armistice on June 17th. And this shows the Maginot Line, which you can see right here, trying to stop Germany from coming in. Number 5, Italy's campaigns. Let me slide this over carefully. Italy's campaigns, June 1940 to February 1942. Italy invaded southern France in June 1940, keen to profit from German successes and to give Italy a place at any later peace conference. To gain control of the Mediterranean, Mussolini then attacked British and British Empire forces in North Africa and attempted to invade Greece. The Italians were repelled in both Egypt and Greece, and Hitler had to divert German troops in support of his ally. Italian advances are a solid purple arrow, and Allied are a dotted purple arrow. So you can see the Italians heading over here, down here, into Greece and in North Africa as well. Heading from Libya into Egypt. The Allies are heading over here, and over here, up here. I think that's it. Britain under attack, July 1940 to May 1941. Hitler's plans to invade Britain were scuppered when Germany failed to beat Britain in the skies in 1940. Hitler switched to bombing Britain's cities, but he abandoned the campaign in May 1941 in favor of invading the Soviet Union. So bombing raids are shown by these blasts here, which you can see all over England, up in Scotland, and even Northern Ireland there. I didn't know they bombed Northern Ireland. Oh, yes, I did. I did a whole video about Belfast and I talked about it. Yes, I did. I just forgot for a brief second. Number 7, the invasion of the Soviet Union. June to December 1941. Germany, along with its Axis allies, attacked the Soviet Union with 4 million troops on a front of almost 1,000 miles. In 3 months, the invaders had almost reached Moscow and Leningrad, but here they failed to win complete victories. The advance was halted in December 1941. So sieges are marked by this weird yellow circle, so we can see in Moscow. There's one in Stalingrad, but it's black, so I'm guessing that's in the next box. I'm guessing it just shows Moscow. Then we have, the Battle of Stalingrad, August 1942 to February 1943. A new Axis offensive in 1942 brought them to the industrial city of Stalingrad. In one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the war, almost 800,000 civilians and soldiers were killed. It ended with a humiliating German surrender, and this marked a turning point in World War II. The ad shows that siege, which is over here in Stalingrad. All right, let's get through all these little boxes here. There's a lot. Let's start up here in Norway. It says April 1940, German forces enter Norwegian waters, starting a 2-month conflict that ends in defeat for the Allies. What's this arrow? German advance. It says in the key down here. German advance, German advance. Pew, pew. Okay, and then let's do this one. September 1941 to January 1944. The 900-day siege of Leningrad by German forces results in over 1 million civilian deaths. There's Leningrad. Oh, there's another siege, like in Moscow. I knew there had to be another one. It said so. Moscow and Leningrad. We found it. On April 9th, 1940, German paratroopers land in Norway. This is the first airborne attack in history. I never knew that here in Stavanger. You can see little parachutes there. Parachute attacks. September 7th, 1940 to May 16th, 1941, Hitler bombs Britain's cities in an offensive known as the Blitz. July 10th to September 6th, 1940. During the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe, which is the German Air Force, target airfields and ports along the English Channel. They're showing Southampton right here. May to June 1940, 335,000 British and French soldiers are evacuated from Dunkirk. There's Dunkirk. There's a whole movie about it, but I never watched it. It was a little too long for me. I'm not a fan of long. I'm supposed to watch The Brutalist at some point in the next few weeks, and I'm not looking forward to it because the only long movie I like is Gone with the Wind. June 14th, 1940, the German forces occupy Paris. I probably should just watch it, give it a chance. But regardless. Let's move down here. April 6th, 1941, Germany invades Yugoslavia, allowing it to attack and ultimately seize Greece. You can see all these advances over here. They're moving all over the place, aren't they? All over the place, even around the islands down here. In October 1940, make sure you can see. Oh, yeah. Italy attacks Greece via Albania, which it had annexed in 1939, but the invasion fails. You can see the purple arrows there for Italy's invasions. Albania right there. Let's hop down to Africa. In January 1941, Allied forces seized the key port of Tobruk from Italian forces. And September 13th, 1940, a second Italian offensive into British-occupied Egypt is a failure. In June 1941, British forces invade Vichy France-held Lebanon and Syria to prevent Axis forces using them as bases from which to attack Egypt. You can see them going up there. What's happening? Oh, that's Stalingrad. June 28th, 1942 to February 2nd, 1943. Soviet forces successfully defend Stalingrad city. Axis forces are left exhausted. That's a long battle. September 17th, 1939. Soviet forces attack Poland from the east. And of course, September 1st to 27th, 1939. The Polish forces attempt to defend Warsaw but are outgunned. There's Warsaw. All these arrows. All over the place. October 2nd, 1941 to January 7th, 1942. Soviet counteroffensives drive Axis armies back from Moscow. See those arrows there. Yeah, my goodness. And I didn't even talk about all the arrows here in France. They're moving all over the place. I mean, mostly west. But yeah, even down here in Italy, invading France. You can see Vichy France here. It's a neat map. You can really see what the stakes were at this point in the war, right? Who controlled what? Because Italy had Libya, Britain had Egypt, most of the Levant, France had this bit. Interesting. And of course there's Spain, Sweden, Turkey, and Ireland too, who were neutral. And Switzerland, of course. Spain had its own, and Portugal had its own problems. That they're like, this is too much drama. We have our own drama, which we talked about last time, all right? Anyway, let's talk about occupied Europe. Let's get depressing. Starting off with ghettos. Oh, I should mention, I know I've said this before, but YouTube has let me know that there's a series of words that it does not like me saying. One of them involves World War II and starts with an H. You can see a photograph of that event here. So we're going to say the H word, okay? The H word. We know what I'm referring to, okay? Starting off with ghettos. As the H word did start off with ghettos, 1939 to 1942. Under Nazi occupation, Jewish people living in small towns and villages were transferred to ghettos set up within the cities. The Nazis established more than 1,000 ghettos in Poland and the Soviet Union alone. Starvation and disease were rife due to food shortages and poor sanitation. In 1942, after the Nazis decided to kill the Jews, the Germans destroyed many of the ghettos and deported the Jews to death camps. And this yellow Star of David here represents the ghettos we can find. There's one in France, here in northern Italy, Yugoslavia, Hungary, and then of course all throughout Poland. Some very famous ones there in Poland and the Soviet Union there. I should say, like, the best movie to watch about this is Schindler's List, talking about long World War II movies. But that's a great movie. Depressing, but very good. Number 2 is political control, 1939 to 1945. Nazi Germany persuaded Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria to accede to the Tripartite Pact as Axis allies. In Slovakia, Norway, and Croatia, puppet regimes were installed. These countries had their own government, but with restricted autonomy and Nazi commissioners in residence. In unoccupied France, the Vichy regime was forced to accept the terms of a German-imposed armistice. So this shows the puppet regimes there. I think it's a little government building. So we see Norway. We see, where else? Slovakia here. Croatia, I guess that's Yugoslavia. Can you see? Yeah, okay, just checking. Where's the Vichy France one? Oh well, I don't see it. But yeah. Boom, boom, and boom. Okay. Number 3 is labor conscription, 1940 to 1945. In all the countries occupied, Germany controlled labor and industry for its war effort. The free deployment of labor was prohibited. Laborers were issued with workbooks and either worked in plants in the occupied countries or were sent to Germany. By the end of 1944, about 8.2 million foreign civilians and prisoners of war, as well as 700,000 concentration camp prisoners, were workers in the German Reich. So this shows forced labor conscription, little hammer and wrench there. As we say in America, we don't say spanner, we say wrench. So we see the Netherlands, Belgium, France, here in Slovakia, Poland. Yeah. I'm already getting upset. Box 4 is way down here. It says the battle for food, 1940 to 1945. At least 20 million people died of starvation during World War II. Hitler sought to create a Reich that was self-sufficient and independent of world trade. He regarded the whole of Eastern Europe as an industrial site and a food source, and was prepared to let its people starve in his pursuit of Lebensraum, or living space, for German-speaking peoples. In other parts of Europe, Jews and non-Germans were starved, either by a deliberate German policy or by Allied blockades. There's a loaf of bread here showing the food shortages we can see over here in the USSR, Greece. Where's some more bread? Belgium and the Netherlands. Surely there's more surrounding here, but I don't see any more. Yeah, that's upsetting too. Let's make it even more upsetting and talk about concentration camps, 1933 to 1945. The Nazis established concentration camps in Germany on coming to power in 1933. Designed for the imprisonment of enemies of the state, concentration camps were not initially set up to kill, but victims died by starvation and physical exhaustion. Some of these camps were later converted into extermination camps, such as Majdanek in Poland, which was originally built for Soviet prisoners of war. I haven't heard of that one. So the camps are shown by, what is that? Oh, it looks like a turtle. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, this symbol. So let's see. We've got, oh goodness, there's too many to mention. Here, all throughout Germany, all throughout Poland, here in the USSR. But some of them are light purple. Oh, those are extermination camps, it says up there. And then down here in Yugoslavia, all kinds. Really upsetting. Let's make it even worse. Mass killings, 1941 to 1943. During the invasion of the Soviet Union, the Nazis deliberately slaughtered large groups of Jews. That's a word. Einsatzgruppen. Yeah, Einsatzgruppen are mobile killing units, followed the German army as it advanced. They went directly to the home communities of Jews and massacred them. Other massacres, such as, this is a Serbian word, Kragujevac in Serbia, and Lidica in Bohemia, Moravia, were carried out as reprisals for the killing of Nazi officials by local resistance fighters. Apologies if I butchered those, doing my best. So these skulls are showing the site of massacre. So we see one there in Bohemia, which is today is the Czech Republic, Serbia, and the USSR up here, right here as well, over here, my goodness, so many. Let's wrap up this depressing map talking about extermination camps, 1942 to 1945. Dedicated death camps did not come into operation until 1942, when the Nazis implemented a policy to exterminate the Jews of Europe. Most victims were killed immediately upon their arrival in the gas chambers, but a minority were kept as slave labor. Roma people, communists, homosexuals, and other undesirables were included in the mass murder. So yeah, the light pink turtles there are extermination camps. So they're over here, all down here. I should say another movie I'm thinking about. I love film, by the way. Is Zone of Interest, which I initially did not like because it's super artsy. Like, it goes way too much into artsy film. Like, I really wish I could have edited that film and just cut out all the weird artsy. Like, there's parts where, like, the screen's just black and there's noise for 4 minutes. It's too artsy. But the meat of the film was really, really interesting. It was about the Nazi official that was running the Auschwitz death camp. But it focused on the fact that his family lived just outside the walls and was like a little slice of life, showing their everyday life. But it was really heavy. Really heavy. Good film, but I can't. It was way too artsy at some points. It was too much. February 1942. Vidkun Quisling, I guess that's how you say his name, I don't care because he's a Norwegian Nazi, is installed as head of a puppet regime. His name became synonymous with traitor. Makes sense. 1941, more than 20,000 Dutch people die of starvation after farmers are forced to hand over produce to Germany. 1940 to 1944, 80% of Belgian children suffer rickets due to malnutrition. Holy moly. On June 22nd, 1940, France signs an armistice that preserves a degree of sovereignty in unoccupied southern France until Germany takes full control in November 1942 after losses in French North Africa. April 1941, an anti-Axis coup in Yugoslavia prompts Germany to invade the country and set up the independent state of Croatia as a puppet. 1941 to 44, Greece is plundered for the German war machine, and supplies are blocked by the British. Blocked by the British. An estimated 300,000 die of starvation by the end of the war. October 22nd, 1941, 2,300 Serbian males are executed at Kragujevac. Goodness. June 1944, more than 220,000 Jews are expelled from their homes in Budapest. September 29th and 30th, 1941, more than 30,000 Ukrainian Jews are shot in Babi Yar ravine. Oh gosh, horrible. Getting through this. December 1941, the first death camp opens at Chelmno, right there, Warsaw. November 30th and December 8th to 9th, 1941, at least 26,000 Jews were shot by German killing squads. This is heavy. There's one more over here. And it's about famine. Because you see the bread. 1941 to 1942, 44 Man, it'd help if I actually read the numbers. 1944. Approximately 2.6 million Soviet prisoners die of starvation and disease in German captivity. The people of occupied USSR are forced to eat dogs and rats and cook their food in paraffin. See, now this is making me want to, I don't want to do this. This is too much. But nope, we're going to get through World War II. Can I say a hot take? My hottest World War II take for a second. My hottest take is that I think World War II is the worst name for any war that's ever existed. That name is terrible. I hate it. It sounds like a bad movie or a video game or something. I don't like the name World War II. World War I is a bit iffy. World War II is worse. So I was planning out this video, right? And I was thinking, what would I rename World War II if I could rewrite all the history books and change the name of this war? And I came up with it. So we have the Great War and the Second Great War. Isn't that a better name, don't you think? Is it just me? The Second Great War sounds so much better than World War II. It just sounds like a bad movie, like a bad franchise. Anyway, that's my hot take. Let's talk about a good name but terrible event, the War in the Pacific. Now that's the name of a war. That's a great war name. Terrible war, horrible tragedy on many sides, but solid name. Let's start with Pearl Harbor. Let's start real exciting here. Pearl Harbor. On December 7th, 1941. The Japanese planned an attack on the large base of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, taking advantage of the U.S.'s unpreparedness for war. They sent a note to the Americans breaking off diplomatic relations, but it was delivered after the bombing. The attack was a total surprise to the Americans. The day after, the U.S. and Britain declared war on Japan, and Hitler declared war on the United States on December 11th. The war had become a global conflict. See, a Japanese attack is shown by the red arrow, which we can clearly see right here. Pum to Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. The wider war begins December 8th, 1941 to January 23rd, 1942. Alongside the Pearl Harbor attack, Japan launched multiple campaigns. Hong Kong and the Pacific islands of Guam, Wake Island, and the Gilbert Group fell in quick succession. The attacks continued in the Philippines and down the Malayan Peninsula with amazing speed, humiliating the British, Dutch, and Americans. In January, Japan took the Australian military base at Rabaul, New Guinea. So the advance is shown by these teal arrows and conquest by teal flags. So we can see moving down here to the Philippines, over there to, it's now Malaysia, down here to New Guinea, over to Wake Island, there's Guam right there. Yeah, it's, there's the Gilberts. It's December 7th and 8th was not just an attack on Hawaii. There were multiple attacks all across East Asia. And it led to, let's see, the conquests. We see Wake Island, Gilberts, there's New Guinea, Te Papua New Guinea. And it looks like it's so far. I see more flags. I wonder what those are for. But here's a box about the conquest of Burma. Nope. We skipped one. The fall of Malaya and the Philippines. There's the red flags. December 9th, 1941 to May 6th, 1942. To gain dominance in Asia, the Japanese needed to tackle the British presence in Malaya and the Americans in the Philippines. Striking first, they took Manila in January and Singapore in February. U.S. and Filipino troops defended the Bataan Peninsula for 3 months before surrendering. So their advance is shown by more red arrows, but I don't see any more. I don't. Only the one to Pearl Harbor. But Japanese conquest is red flags, and Japanese victory is these crossed red bayonets. So we see victory and conquest here in the Philippines, conquest here in Singapore. Oh, there's one. There's a red arrow heading down to Singapore to conquer it. I don't see any more. Let me see these we'll talk about. What is that? Japanese. What does that say? Japanese. Carrier/air raid. I was like, what's a carrier? Carrier/air raid. So we'd see all throughout India, Sri Lanka, Australia, and Darwin, very famous one. Over there in New Guinea. My cat's throwing himself at the door now. I'm sorry, cat. Number 4 is the conquest of Burma, January 20th to May 20th, 1942. For Japan, taking Burma would cut off supplies into nationalist China, opening the way for the Japanese to conquer all of China and place themselves at India's gate. After crossing Siam, which is today Thailand, Japanese troops overcame the small British force in Burma and their Chinese allies by the end of May. So that advances this green arrow, which we can see coming from here all the way up into Burma, now Myanmar. Then we have number 5, conquest of the Dutch East Indies from February to March 9th, 1942. The rubber and oil fields in the Dutch East Indies, today Indonesia, made it a prime target. In February, Japan made a series of landings, at the same time bombing Darwin, Australia, to cut off Allied reinforcements. The Allies suffered defeat in a series of naval battles and failed to halt the Japanese advance. So now their advance are these purple arrows, and victory is these purple bayonets. So we see them heading down here to the Dutch East Indies, which again today is Malaysia. And conflict there. Oh, victory. That's right. Then we have Allied victories, May 4th to June 6th, 1942. In May, Japan sent a large fleet to capture the Allied base of Port Moresby in New Guinea, a plan that the Allies thwarted in the Coral Sea. The Allies then deciphered Japanese signal codes that warned them of an attack on the U.S. base on Midway Island. The ensuing battle was an important win for the U.S. Navy and marked a turning point in the Pacific War. So now our advance are these blue arrows. Oh, here we go. Port Moresby. We'll throw out there. And Allied victories are these blue bayonets. We can see they're in the Coral Sea. And there's Midway. And I don't see any more. But important ones nonetheless. Oh, that was it. I thought there were more up there, but there's not. There are lots of little boxes here, so let's go through them. Slide this book over. It's so heavy once we're in the back. A snowplow's going by. There it goes. Thank you, snowplow. I'm filming this in the daytime, so I don't have an issue with the lighting like I did last time. I've got natural sun, but it's still very overcast today. It was snowing right before I filmed. Thank you, snowplow. April 6th, Oh, that's just battles. We want the boxes. January 20th, 1942, Japan enters Burma. There's Rangoon there, today Yangon. March 8th, 1942, the British retreat allows Japan to take Rangoon, now Yangon. February 15th, 1942, Singapore surrenders to Japan with the loss of 138,000 troops from the British Commonwealth. March 9th, 1942, the Dutch East Indies surrenders to Japan. February 19th, 1942, Darwin is attacked by 188 Japanese planes. Holy moly. Let's see. May 4th to 8th, 1942, in the Battle of the Coral Sea, Japanese ships suffer too much damage to continue the invasion of Port Moresby. On December 10th, 1941, the Gilbert Islands fall to Japan. On February 1st, 1942, the Allies strike a Japanese base in Kwajalein. On January 23rd, 1942, Japan takes Rabaul, becomes their main southern base. I hope I'm saying that right. Probably not, knowing my luck. January 2nd, 1942, Manila falls to Japan. And on May 6th, 1942, Corregidor Island in Manila Bay, the last U.S. stronghold, fails. December 25th, 1941, Hong Kong surrenders. I've got hiccups. Oh my goodness, let me get a drink real quick. No time for hiccups. Okay. December 22nd, 1941. The main invasion force lands in the Philippines from Formosa. December 10th, 1941, Japan captures Guam from the U.S. December 23rd, 1941, Wake Island falls to second Japanese attack. And on February 24th, 1942, the Allied raid is the first of many. Up in Tokyo, April 18th, 1942, Lieutenant Colonel Doolittle leads an American air raid on Tokyo in retaliation for Pearl Harbor. On June 4th to 6th, 1942, Japan suffers its first major setback. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers are sunk. Back where I should have probably started this map, December 7th, 1941, Japanese torpedo bombers hit the American fleet, followed an hour later by a second wave to finish the attack. And then way up here in Alaska, June 6th to 7th, 1942, the Japanese take Attu and Kiska in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, the only American soil they occupied. Wow. Yes, big, huge battles there. But let's turn the tide. Let's talk about Germany defeated. Starting off with the Battle for the Atlantic. Now, see, that's a name. Battle for the Atlantic. Battles have great names. Wars really don't. I suppose. We're just talking about names. I suppose battles have better names. Because it's always Battle of blank, right? That's a solid title. Battle for the Atlantic, 1942-1943. Between 1942 and 1943, millions of tons of Allied shipping was sunk by the German submarine force, or U-boats. Germany concentrated its attacks in the mid-Atlantic, out of range of Allied aircraft. But from 1943, Allied aircraft could fly long range and find the U-boats with radar. Germany was forced to withdraw. All right, a lot going on. Allied air cover in 1940 is green, so I'm guessing that's this. And Allied air cover in 1943 is dark green, so they've got, goodness, can you even see? All this, pew, pew, pew. Areas of U-boat success, 1942 is gray. So these areas up here, I'm guessing. Areas of U-boat success in 1943 is dark gray, which I only see dark gray here in France, but clearly not. Okay. I don't understand. Okay, moving along. We don't have time for this. The Nazi-Soviet conflict, 1943-1944. After the defeat at Stalingrad in 1943, Hitler gambled on a huge tank battle to decimate the Russians at Kursk. Great word, Kursk. That's a Battle of Kursk. Great name. The gamble failed. The Soviet army had a better command structure than the various Axis forces. The Soviet counter-advance into Romania and Hungary brought about the surrender of Hitler's allies. So Axis surrender shown by these little white flags in 1944. So what we've got, I see Bulgaria, Romania. It's very easy to see the white. They should utilize the color white more often. I don't see any more though. I certainly do not. Just there. Next we have the Mediterranean. 1942 to 1945. In 1942, the defeat of the Axis armies. That was a loud noise. I think that was snow falling off the roof. In 1942, the defeat of the Axis armies under Erwin Rommel at El Alamein in Egypt was a turning point for the Western Allies. They went on to invade Italian Libya and Sicily, then Italy itself in 1943. When the Italians surrendered, the Germans occupied Italy and continued the fight without their main ally until May 1945. Yeah, what was I doing a video on? I wanted probably Benghazi. I want to say it must have been Benghazi, where there was a lot of talk about Erwin Rommel and the battles there, and I was like, what if I just don't mention that? What if I just don't talk about World War II? And no one noticed, so hooray. Did not want to talk about Nazis. Strategic bombing, 1944 to 1945. During 1944, the bombing of German cities became a significant strategy for the Allies. Attacks on oil supplies and oil fields devastated the German war effort. Some 400,000 German civilians were killed, and many cities annihilated. Hitler responded by firing V-1 cruise missiles and V-2 rockets at London. So cities bombed by the Allies are blue, cities severely bombed. Cities severely bombed by Germans are purple. So of course, there's here by London. And then look at all these cities that the Allies bombed. Munich, Stuttgart, Cologne, I guess that's Dusseldorf, Bremen, Hamburg, Berlin, of course, Warsaw, this place, what's that say? Ploesti? I have to tell you, I've never heard of this town or city. Sorry, Romanians. But yeah, lots of major attacks there, and bombings, I should say. Then we have the invasion of Normandy, June to July 1944. On June 6, 1944, the Allies invaded northern France in what was the largest amphibious attack in history. 5 Allied divisions landed on 5 French beaches, but progress was slow because of thick hedgerows and a fierce German defense. With this invasion, the Allies forced Hitler to fight on 2 fronts in both Western and Eastern Europe. So D-Day shown by these purple arrows, which of course is going here. Which that film to watch would be Saving Private Ryan, where they showed D-Day in like the first 25 minutes of the film in like extreme detail. This looks like a purple arrow too, but maybe that's a black arrow over here. Like there's 2. I don't know. I can't tell the difference between purple and black. Maybe the light isn't as good as I thought it was. Germany on the ropes, March to May 1945. In the last months of the war, despite tough resistance, Germany suffered only defeats. U.S. troops crossed the Rhine into Germany in March 1945 and proceeded to capture Hanover and Nuremberg. Meanwhile, Soviet forces launched a huge offensive through Poland and eventually captured Berlin on April 30th. And that's pretty much the end of World War II in Europe. Let's read all these boxes. Let's start in Africa. Let's work our way up. May 13th, 1943, 240,000 Axis forces surrender in Tunisia. November 9th, maybe it was a Tunisia video. I don't remember. November 1942, the siege of Malta is finally lifted. Malta is strategically important for control of the Mediterranean. Yeah, that's an epic World War III. Where's the Malta movie? That would be a good movie about the siege of Malta. September 8th, 1943, Italy surrenders to Allied forces. And October 13th, 1943, Italy declares war on Germany. In July 1943, the Allies capture Sicily. I was showing Sicily when I was talking about Malta. Malta's right here. This is Sicily. This is not Malta at all. Malta's right here. This is Sicily. That's what happens when I don't rehearse. The Allies capture Sicily and prepare for the invasion of Italy, which I'm sure is what these orange arrows depict. November 1942, the Allies win a clear victory over German Italian troops at El Alamein. Maybe it was an Egypt video. I don't remember. I really don't. Someone's shoveling snow outside. Can you hear that? I guess that makes sense. There's snow. It's daytime. They're shoveling. But I'd appreciate it if they didn't do it right outside. moving along. July 5th to August 23rd, 1943, the Axis assault on Kursk, that's a great town name, Kursk, is met with 1.3 million soldiers and 3,400 tanks from the Soviet Union. The Axis forces are defeated. What else is happening in the Soviet Union during this time? I mean, a lot, but let's see what it says. June 22nd, 1944, Stalin orders Operation Bagration. What does that word mean? Someone will tell me. A massive offensive into the Baltic states and western Poland. I mean, Operation Bagration is that's a great name. It rhymes. It sounds like Dr. Seuss, but I don't know what that word means. July 1944, the Soviet army reaches the Vistula River opposite Warsaw. The Germans suffer 850,000 casualties. January 17th, 1945, the Soviet troops liberate the Polish city of Warsaw. In January 1944, the Soviet army crosses the old Polish border. Look at all these. Who are the yellow? The Allies. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Look at all these. Pew, 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 pew. All headed this way and all heading this way. Germany is you're done. You're cooked. February 13th to 14th, 1945. The Allied... Oh, there's another flag. I found another one in Finland. Yes. The Allies firebombed Dresden, devastating the city and killing thousands of civilians in one of the most controversial acts of World War II. Dresden right there. November 1943 to April 1945. 1/3 of Berlin's houses are destroyed in a long bombing campaign by the Allies. What are the white? So it's Allied victories. That's quite a lot. April 25th, 1945, Soviet and U.S. troops meet at the River Elbe. Both allies fight on until unconditional surrender from Germany. I think we got it. No box for D-Day. Oh, there's a bunch over here. Hold on. This says May 24th, 1943. Admiral Donitz withdraws German U-boats from the North Atlantic after huge losses. And November 1942, Allied forces make landings in Morocco and Algeria as part of Operation Torch, a campaign to take control of North Africa. Right here. Pew, pew. All right. We've wrapped up Europe. Let's wrap up the Pacific. Japan defeated. Operation Cartwheel. July 1942 to March 1943. In July 1942, the Allies began a campaign to neutralize Japan's main southern base at Rabaul by gaining control of New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. By March 1943, they had secured the Japanese airfield in Guadalcanal Island, defeated the Japanese on land in eastern New Guinea, and won some important naval battles, giving them the initiative in the area. Allied advance are red arrows. Allied naval victory are these crossed bayonets here. So here they are heading up into the Solomon Islands, into what's now Papua New Guinea, and all the surrounding islands there, and victories here, Guadalcanal, of course, and right here. Island hopping in the Pacific, November 1943 to September 1944. The capture of Tarawa was the start of a U.S. drive across the Pacific. Despite bitter resistance from Japanese soldiers, the U.S. Marines took the Gilbert Islands, then the Marshalls, then the large Japanese base at Saipan in the Marianas. The Japanese attempted to defend the Marianas at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, but suffered a devastating defeat. Allied advances are blue arrows, and this time naval victories are blue bayonets. So we're heading out of Hawaii. Boom, boom. Hitting up all these islands there. Then heading over to the Philippines or Guam. Philippines are over here. They're heading that way though. And victories right here, the Philippine Sea. Recovery of Burma, March 1944 to May 1945. For the Allies, the defeat of Burma had to be reversed in order to reopen the route to China. In 1944, seeing the British had strengthened their forces with vital air support, the Japanese took the offensive and advanced into India. The British, Indian, U.S., and Chinese forces pushed back the Japanese, and Burma was taken by the Allies in 1945. So Allied advance are solid green arrows, and Japanese advances dotted green arrows. So you can see they're all heading down here to Rangoon, and dotted lines up there. The liberation of the Philippines, October 1944 to May 1945. The lengthy Allied operation to recapture the Philippines began with the landing of a large force from 750 U.S. ships in Leyte Gulf. I need to know how to pronounce this. I've never known. Is it Leyte? That's what I've always said. I need my Filipino viewers to let me know. The Japanese countered the invasion in Leyte Gulf with sea and air strikes, including kamikaze suicide tactics for the first time. Nevertheless, the overwhelming firepower of the U.S. forces crippled the Japanese Imperial Navy. So Allied advances are solid purple, and Allied naval victories are purple bayonets. So we're heading into the Philippines now. There's the victory there. I've always said Leyte. Yeah, someone's going to tell me how to pronounce that. I have a feeling that's not how you say it. Iwo Jima and Okinawa, February to June 1945. The capture of Iwo Jima and Okinawa, two islands south of Japan's main islands, provided the Allies with forward bases from which they could bomb or invade Japan. By taking Okinawa, the Allies also cut off Japan's supply lines from its territories in Southeast Asia. These battles were some of the bloodiest in the Pacific theater of war, with Japanese suicide attacks reaching their peak and thousands of lives lost on both sides. So purple arrows, yeah, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. What was that movie? What was it called? Hold on. What was that movie called? It was the Japanese war movie. If I Google that, will it pop up? Yes, Letters from Iwo Jima. That movie is excellent. That's a 10 out of 10. Depressing, but that's a great movie. Oh my gosh, that's such a good movie. It was interesting. I think that was Clint Eastwood that made that movie. They did two movies at the same time. They filmed Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, with Flags of Our Fathers being the American side and Letters from Iwo Jima being the Japanese side. So like the same event from the two different perspectives. But Letters from Iwo Jima is an amazing film. My gosh. Let's continue. Japan under attack, March to August 1945. Once Iwo Jima was captured, the U.S. began incendiary bomb attacks on Japan's major cities, hoping to pound Japan into surrender without risking Allied lives in an invasion. In August, this culminated in the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing tens of thousands of civilians in an instant. The Soviets joined the war against Japan in Manchuria, and the Japanese emperor announced surrender soon afterward. So this shows atomic bombs, and the Allied advances yellow arrows. So yeah, they're heading, again, just like Germany on the other map, all these arrows heading straight for Japan. Not a good look for Japan. And there's Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those bombs there. I think we have one more map. Do we? Or is that it? Oh, was that it? Wow, that went faster than I thought. I zoomed through that. Let's finish off the little boxes here. Let's start over here and work our way over. March 4th to June 22nd, 1944, the Japanese besiege, where? Imphal in India, but they can't capture it. Right there. On May 3rd, 1945, the British Indian Army captures Rangoon. Where else? October 22nd, 1944, 60,000 U.S. troops land on Lolita. I hope. May 2nd to 3rd, 1943, the Allies bomb a Japanese convoy on its way to Rabaul after deciphering the Japanese signal codes. Over here. March 3rd, 1945, Manila is secured by the U.S. after a month-long battle. On June 19th to 20th, 1944, Japan is defeated at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, losing more than 400 aircraft and 3 aircraft carriers. Japanese Prime Minister Tojo resigns. February 23rd, 1945, U.S. forces capture Mount Suribachi on Iwo Jima amid frenzied fighting, and 23,000 Japanese die on the island. March 9th to 10th, 1945, 334 American B-29 planes drop incendiary bombs on Tokyo. 80,000 civilians die in the firestorm. Oh, look up here in the Aleutians. There's, what's that? Allied amphibious assault. Alright, getting the Aleutians back. And then it looks like we just have November 10th, 1943. The Americans land on Tarawa but suffer heavy casualties. Let me tell you a little story before we go, because during World War II, I've told before what my grandma did. My grandma worked for General Ronald Reagan. Yes, that Ronald Reagan. Her name was Jane, and his wife at the time was named Jane, so he called her Work Janie, and whenever he referred to his wife, he called her Home Janie. So that's what my grandma did during World War II when she was a teenager. She was Ronald Reagan's secretary. My grandpa, her eventual husband, they would meet after World War II. He worked at a steel factory, so he wasn't like enlisted to fight in the Pacific because he's in California. So was my grandma. He worked at a steel mill, so he didn't have to enlist because he was already doing war effort stuff. So at one point, he was working hard and he was like, no, I need to do what I need to do as an American citizen and enlist and go fight the Japanese, right? So he enlists in like April 1945, probably. By the time he's shipped out, he winds up in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor to ship out. It's August 1945. And he just got sent right back home. He didn't see any conflict whatsoever in World War II. My poor grandpa, he was really ready to serve his country and didn't see any conflict at all because he enlisted right at the end of the war. Those are my family World War II stories. But yeah, that's it for tonight. Look at this map. Look at this. Axis powers in Europe. Yeah, this is all of World War II in one big map. Look how cool that is. You can see the Pacific and the European War all down there. All the different attacks all across the oceans. Well, that's a neat map. That's a neat perspective. But yeah, that is it for tonight. I powered through that one. We got through the horribleness of World War II, but we're still in the 20th century. It only gets worse. But next we're going to talk about Babu and India and China. So look forward to that next week if all goes well. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good night. 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 This is my pair of sleep phones. Pajamas for your ears. And it's essentially a headband with little speakers in it. So you can pop it on your head and comfortably lay down on your pillow and listen to binaural ASMR as you fall asleep. It's all dusty, but that's good because this is machine washable. You can just pop out the little headphones there and wash this. I guess I have to do that next. Cat hairs all over it. I use this pretty much every night. It's perfect for traveling. And actually, here's a story for you. This is not my original pair of sleep phones. I went and visited one of my best friends, brought my sleep phones with me, and accidentally left it behind. So my friend says, "Oh, don't worry, I'll ship it to you. It's fine." But then she tells me the next day, "Actually, I'm not, because I used it, and I love it, and I'm keeping it, and I just bought you a new pair. I'm sending it to your home." So this is the pair she sent me. My original ones are still with my bestie. She kept it. It's so funny. But I swear by these things. I sleep so well with them. They don't bother me either. I have chronic migraine. I have to be careful with what I put on my head, because if it's too tight or makes me too sweaty, I get a migraine. This has never done that. It's incredibly comfortable. The sound quality is awesome. And I just pass out and sleep so well when I'm wearing these. I can't recommend it enough. So if you would like to get your pair, I have an affiliate link down in the description box. It would very much help out my channel. Don't forget to uninstall Honey before you purchase. And you can get your own pair of sleep phones, pajamas for your ears, and sleep comfortably and sound. They have all sorts of different styles. They have a wireless version. I just have the wire one, just because that was just what I had before she bought me the same pair. But they have all sorts of different kinds for all sorts of different types of people. So be sure to check them out and sleep well.